The monitors screamed flat lines. Doctors shouted over each other, hands pressing, injecting, shocking, and still nothing. The once mighty CEO, the man who controlled empires with a phone call, lay motionless under the sterile lights. His face, pale, lips gray, body limp. His empire was collapsing, and now his very heartbeat betrayed him. And then she burst in. A girl with tangled hair, ripped sleeves, and dust on her cheeks. A homeless nobody. Nobody knew her name. Nobody cared where she came from. But her voice broke through the chaos like a blade. "Take my blood.
Now.
Or you'll lose him forever." The room froze. The lead surgeon, drenched in sweat, stared at her. "What are you talking about? This isn't how it works." "He needs my blood." Her voice cracked, yet it thundered with certainty. She grabbed the tray, shoved instruments aside, exposing her arm. Her wrist trembled, veins sharp beneath her bruised skin. "Take it before it's too late." The monitors wailed flat. The doctors exchanged horrified glances. Desperate, one nurse whispered, "She's the only match we found in the database, the donor we couldn't trace." Shock turned to silence. The choice was madness, but it was also the only chance. The surgeon clenched his jaw, barked orders. Tubes connected, blood flowed, scarlet and alive. Her eyes fluttered with dizziness as her life poured into his veins. And then, a faint blip. Another. The monitor screamed back to life. The CEO's chest rose. A shallow breath. His eyes twitched beneath closed lids. The room gasped. The homeless girl sagged against the chair, her face ghostly pale, but her lips curved faintly as though she'd wrestled death itself and won. When he opened his eyes, it wasn't the blinding hospital lights he noticed first. It was her, curled in the corner, for in her arm, her clothes torn, cheeks hollow. She looked fragile, almost breakable. Yet her presence filled the room with a gravity that pulled him in. For the first time in his life, the CEO didn't feel in control. He felt indebted.
His voice was hoarse, a rasp.
"Who are you?" Her eyes fluttered open.
Dark, steady.
"Nobody." The words stabbed deeper than any knife. He should have laughed. He should have dismissed her like the dozens of people who begged for his attention. But instead, a sharp ache twisted his chest, not from the surgery, but from the way she said it. Like she'd been erased from the world long before this night. 2 days later, reporters swarmed the hospital. Cameras flashed, demanding answers. Who saved the CEO? Was it true a beggar girl gave her blood? The board members seethed in backrooms, whispering, calculating how to spin the story. A billionaire reborn because of a street girl? Unacceptable. Dangerous. Scandalous. Yet in his private suite, the CEO sat in silence, watching her sleep in the chair beside him. Her hand twitched occasionally, as if fighting off nightmares. He studied every scar on her skin, every strand of hair matted with dirt. A girl like her didn't belong here, yet she had saved him when the entire world of power and wealth had failed. He whispered to himself almost bitterly, "Why you? Out of all people, why you?" Her eyes opened, as if she heard him even in dreams. Because nobody else could. Her words sliced the air, leaving him breathless. That night, she tried to leave. Her thin frame slipped quietly from the chair, for tugging at her arm. She thought he was asleep, but his voice broke the silence. "Where are you going?" She froze, turned slowly, back to the streets. Where else? His jaw tightened. For the man who commanded nations, words suddenly failed. He didn't know how to say what burned inside his chest. Gratitude?
No.
That was too small. Possession?
No.
That was too cruel. Finally, he said only, "You can't." She lifted her chin, fire sparking in her tired eyes. "You don't own me. You never will." For the first time in his life, the unshakable CEO felt a crack in his armor. She walked toward the door, every step shaking but defiant. And just before disappearing into the shadows of the hallway, she whispered words that would haunt him. "Don't waste the life I gave you." The door clicked shut. The CEO sat frozen, pulse racing, his hand pressed to the chest where her blood now flowed. For the first time in decades, the man who had everything felt like he had lost everything. The city glittered outside the hospital window, but inside his suite, everything felt unnervingly quiet. Alexander Hale, the CEO who once had the world at his feet, sat propped against pillows, his chest still aching from surgery. The four dripped beside him, the steady beep of monitors a reminder that he had been one breath away from death. But it wasn't death that haunted him now. It was her. The girl with the wild hair, the torn clothes, and the eyes that burned with something purer than all the polished liars who had ever filled his boardroom. The girl who had given him her blood, and then left him with words that kept slicing into him. "Don't waste the life I gave you." He didn't even know her name. The thought gnawed at him. For Alexander Hale, anonymity was impossible. The world knew his face, his power, his wealth. Yet the girl who saved him was a ghost, fading back into the streets as though she had never existed. And he couldn't let it go. "Find her," he ordered, his voice cold as steel. His assistant, Samuel, shifted uneasily. "Sir, the hospital has no record of her. She refused to sign her name. No ID, no address. She just vanished." Alexander's fingers tightened on the sheets. Vanished. As if she had been a figment of his dying hallucinations. But he remembered the warmth of her blood rushing into him. The way her voice cut through the chaos. The way she defied him, even as he lay on the edge of death. No one had ever defied him. And no one had ever saved him. 2 nights later. Rain lashed against the city. Neon lights blurred across wet pavement. She was there, huddled under a broken awning, her thin frame wrapped in an old jacket, eyes fixed on the steam rising from a street vendor's cart. She had no money, but hunger clawed at her belly. When she finally turned to walk away, a black car slid to a stop in front of her. The tinted window rolled down. Him. Her heart stuttered. Alexander Hale. Alive. Stronger than he should have been. And staring at her as though the entire world had narrowed to this single rain-soaked alley. "You," his voice cut through the storm. "Get in." She froze, clutching her jacket tighter. "No." The single word hit him harder than any boardroom betrayal. His jaw flexed. "Do you understand who I am?" Her gaze locked on his, fierce despite the cold and hunger. "I know exactly who you are. And I don't care." The driver inhaled sharply, as if expecting the CEO to erupt. But Alexander didn't. He leaned forward, eyes glinting with something dangerous. "You bled for me," he said softly. "You don't get to walk away." Her stomach twisted. He made it sound like a contract, a debt she owed. She spat back. "I didn't save you for gratitude. Or money. I did it because no one else could. That doesn't mean you own me." Lightning split the sky. His face, illuminated for a heartbeat, looked carved from marble. Cold. Unyielding. Yet beneath it, something flickered, something almost human. "Get in the car," he said again, this time quieter, almost pleading. Her lips trembled, but she turned away. "I've lived invisible my whole life. Don't drag me into your world of cameras and lies. I won't survive it." And she walked. Every step felt like tearing her own heart out, but pride held her spine straight. Inside the car, Alexander's hands curled into fists. For the first time, power meant nothing. Money, status, control, none of it could command her. And that terrified him more than death had. Later that night, he stood by his penthouse window, the city sprawling beneath him like a kingdom at his feet. His reflection stared back, pale, scarred, weaker than before. He touched his chest where her blood now pulsed in his veins. He had never needed anyone. Not his ruthless board. Not his so-called lovers. Not his enemies, not his allies. But now, her face haunted him. The homeless girl who told him no. The only person who had ever dared. His whisper fogged the glass as he admitted the truth only to himself. "I can't let you go." The boardroom was silent, except for the ticking of the glass clock on the far wall. Alexander Hale sat at the head of the table, power radiating from him even as his body was still recovering. Executives shuffled nervously, reports in hand. But he wasn't listening. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, drenched in rain, defiant in the alley, her voice ringing in his ears. "I don't care who you are."
You don't own me.
She had walked away. And no one walked away from Alexander Hale. "Sir," one board member finally spoke. "The merger?" Alexander's chair scraped back sharply. "Postpone it." Mouths dropped open. Postpone? $1 billion deal delayed because the CEO's mind was elsewhere? But he was already walking out, his long strides eating the marble floor. He didn't owe them explanations. His empire could wait. He had someone more important to find. Across the city, in the back corner of a small diner, she nursed a cup of cheap coffee. Her name, though no one had asked in years, was Elena. She stirred the liquid absent-mindedly, her reflection rippling in the dark surface. The city outside roared with life, but inside, she felt invisible again. Maybe that was safer. Safer than being seen by a man like Alexander Hale. Yet her body still carried him. Every beat of her heart reminded her of the blood she had given him. A piece of herself she could never take back. And the memory of his eyes, piercing, relentless, haunted her in ways that frightened her. The bell above the diner door chimed. She froze. He was there. His tailored suit dark against the warmth of the diner, his presence sucking the air out of the room. Conversations stilled. Waitresses stammered. Customers gawked. The most powerful man in the city had just walked into a greasy diner. For her. Elena. His voice carried, low and commanding. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't told him her name. He slid into the booth across from her before she could move. The leather groaned under his weight, his cologne cutting through the smell of burnt coffee. How do you know my name?" she whispered. His lips curved slightly, not into a smile. He never smiled. But something darker. "I own half the data in this city. Did you really think I wouldn't find you?" Her fists tightened in her lap. "You had no right." "I have every right," he countered, leaning forward, voice sharp. "You think you can give me your blood and then vanish? You tethered yourself to me, Elena. You belong." "I don't belong to anyone." Her voice cracked through the diner, eyes blazing. "I didn't save you so you could chain me. I saved you because I couldn't watch another person die. That's all." His jaw flexed, but beneath the steel in his eyes, something flickered.
Pain.
Desperation. For the first time, Alexander Hale looked less like an untouchable titan and more like a man who was terrified of being abandoned. The silence between them grew heavy, pulsing with an emotion neither dared name. Then movement at the counter. A man, young, rugged, a regular at the diner, stepped forward, glaring at Alexander. She said, "No, pal. Maybe you don't hear that word often, but around here, it means get lost." Alexander's eyes snapped to him. Lethal. He wasn't used to competition, least of all from a man in worn jeans and work boots. Elena's hand shot up, stopping the argument before it exploded.
"Please."
"Both of you. I don't want this." But Alexander couldn't look away. Jealousy, raw and unfamiliar, burned in his veins hotter than any four. The man at the counter scoffed and returned to his seat, muttering about arrogant rich men. Alexander leaned closer, his voice low, meant only for her. "Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me you don't feel this pull between us." Her throat tightened, because she did. God help her, she did. But she shook her head, forcing steel into her tone. "What I feel doesn't matter. I don't want your world. And I don't want you." She shoved back from the booth and fled out the door, into the rain-soaked street. He didn't follow. Not because he couldn't, but because the fire in her eyes told him chasing her now would only drive her further. Instead, he sat in the empty booth, her coffee cup still warm between them, and whispered to himself like a vow. "You can run, Elena, but you'll never escape what's already inside you. Inside us both." The hospital room was silent except for the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. Elena stood at the edge of the room, her fingers still bruised from where the four had pierced her skin. She had tried to slip away unnoticed, but his voice stopped her. Don't move. The command was quiet, rough, but it held the weight of a man who had commanded empires. She froze, then turned, her gaze colliding with the intense, piercing eyes of Adrian King, the CEO everyone thought was beyond saving. For the first time, his voice wasn't weak. It was alive. You. He studied her as though she were a puzzle no one had ever dared to solve. You gave me your blood. Why? Her chest tightened. His eyes were sharper than any blade. Because you were dying. You don't even know me. His words cut like glass, but there was confusion in his tone too, as though kindness was something foreign. Elena swallowed hard. You're right. I don't. But I know what it feels like to watch someone die when you could have done something. I wasn't going to stand there and let it happen. The silence stretched, electric. He didn't look away, and she couldn't either. For one dangerous second, it felt like time itself had bent toward them. Then the door burst open. Mr. King, his assistant, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, rushed in with papers in hand. The board demands answers. They're circling like vultures. Your survival changes everything. But they need you to sign this contract today. If you don't, we risk losing controlling shares to your cousin. Adrian's jaw clenched. The weight of power, of empire, pressed back onto his chest. But his hand trembled when he tried to reach for the pen. His body wasn't strong enough yet. The assistant looked helplessly between them, then whispered, She can sign on your behalf if you authorize it. She's the only one here. Elena's heart stopped. Her? Sign for him? The CEO who owned towers of glass and steel, who commanded legions of men in suits, handing her, a homeless girl who had slept under bridges, the fate of his empire? Adrian's eyes flicked to hers. Cold, unreadable, and yet something in them burned. Elena, he said slowly, deliberately, as if trying the name on his tongue. Do you trust me? Her lips parted. Do you trust me? A beat of silence. Then, with a half-smile that was more dangerous than a storm, he murmured, I don't trust anyone. But you're different. Her fingers shook as she took the pen. The contract gleamed under the harsh light, filled with numbers and stakes she couldn't comprehend. Her throat tightened. One stroke of her hand could make or destroy a fortune. She looked up at him. If I do this, everything changes. His gaze locked on hers. Everything already has.
She signed.
The black ink carved her name into a world she didn't belong to. And in that instant, she wasn't just a homeless girl. She was a player in a game of power. The assistant exhaled in relief, gathering the papers. You've saved him and his empire. Elena placed the pen down, her pulse racing. She felt Adrian's eyes on her still, heavy and unwavering. You've tied yourself to me now, he said, voice low, almost a warning. There's no going back. And though fear gripped her chest, another truth whispered inside her. Maybe she didn't want to go back. Cliffhanger ending. As she turned to leave the room, Adrian's cousin appeared in the doorway, his smile sharp as a knife. Well, he drawled. So the street rat saved the king. How inconvenient. The cousin's smile was venom dressed in silk. Adrian, he drawled, stepping into the hospital room as though he owned it. News of your miraculous survival is spreading already. Though, I can't imagine the board will be too thrilled to know their fate now rests in the trembling hand of a street rat. Elena stiffened, heat rushing to her cheeks. The insult stung. But more than that, the way Adrian's cousin looked at her, like she was dirt under his shoe, ignited a fire in her chest. Adrian's voice cut through the tension, low and lethal. Watch your mouth, Daniel. Daniel's smirk widened. So it's true then? You let her sign the contract. Tell me, cousin, was it her blood that saved you, or her signature? Or perhaps both? His eyes slid to Elena, dark with mockery. I wonder what else she's willing to give. The words dripped poison. Elena's hands clenched into fists, nails biting into her palms. Before she could speak, Adrian pushed himself up in the hospital bed. The monitors beeped wildly, but his fury gave him strength. If you ever so much as look at her with that filth in your eyes again, you'll regret it. Daniel laughed softly. Protective already?
My.
The great Adrian King, undone by a girl who doesn't even have a roof over her head. Elena flinched. Shame burned at her edges, but before it could swallow her, Adrian's words shattered it. She has more honor than you'll ever understand, he said sharply, his voice carrying a finality that silenced the room. For the first time, Daniel's smile faltered. He gave a cold nod, his eyes flickering between them. Very well. Enjoy your recovery. But remember this, Adrian, power attracts enemies. And when they smell weakness, they strike. He left, the echo of his footsteps leaving a heavy chill behind. The silence afterward felt suffocating. Elena stared at the floor, unsure whether to leave or speak. Adrian's voice finally broke through. Don't listen to him. She glanced up, startled to find his eyes on her. Not cold, not calculating, but steady. Almost gentle. You don't understand, she whispered.
He's right.
I don't belong here. I shouldn't have signed that paper. I'm nothing compared to. Enough. His command was sharp, but his gaze softened. Don't ever say you're nothing. You gave me your blood when no one else could. You gave me your trust when I deserved nothing. That makes you worth more than all their titles combined. Her breath caught. She had no words. His intensity left her bare, exposed, seen in a way she hadn't been in years. The air between them tightened, thick with an unspoken pull neither dared acknowledge. Her heart pounded, not just with fear, but with something terrifyingly alive. She tried to step back, to put distance between them, but his hand reached out, trembling, yet firm enough to catch her wrist. Stay. His voice was quiet, raw. Just for a little longer. Elena's throat tightened. For a moment, the billionaire CEO looked nothing like the ruthless man everyone feared. He looked human, vulnerable, and it was that vulnerability that terrified her most. Because if she stayed, she knew she risked losing more than just her freedom. She risked her heart. Cliffhanger ending. As she opened her mouth to reply, the hospital window shattered with a deafening crack. A brick crashed onto the floor, shards of glass raining everywhere. Attached to it was a note, written in red ink. The king should have stayed dead. Elena froze, the blood draining from her face. Adrian's grip on her wrist tightened. Their enemies weren't just inside the family, they were watching from the shadows. The note still lay on the hospital floor, its crimson words burning into Elena's mind. The king should have stayed dead. Adrian's jaw was rigid, his grip iron on her wrist. The glass shards glittered around them like fragments of broken fate.
Security, he barked.
Within seconds, men in black rushed in, scanning, securing, whispering into earpieces. But Elena couldn't move. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The brick, the note, it wasn't just a threat. It was a reminder. She had dragged herself into a world where power was poison, and now she was marked too. One of the guards picked up the note, glancing nervously. Sir, this wasn't just random. They knew you were here. Adrian's gaze darkened. Double the patrol. Seal every entrance. No one gets close without my permission. The guard nodded and left, the room heavy with unspoken fear. Elena tried to pull her hand free, but Adrian didn't let go. His voice was low, rough, almost pleading. Don't think for a second this was about you. They're after me. Her eyes burned. That's the problem. They're after you, but I'm standing right in the middle. I don't belong in your war, Adrian. He looked at her then, really looked. His face was pale from blood loss, yet his eyes blazed with something she couldn't decipher. You gave me life, he said, his tone raw. Do you understand that? If they want me dead, they'll have to go through you too. And I'll never allow that. Her chest tightened painfully. You can't protect me from everything. Look at me, I have nothing. No name, no money, no power. I sleep where no one sees me. I can't fight people like this. Adrian's hand rose, trembling slightly, and brushed the edge of her cheek. The gesture was so out of place, so intimate, that her breath caught. Power isn't in wealth or titles, he whispered. It's in the fire I saw when you bled for me. The world may call you nothing, but to me, you are everything. The words cut deeper than any insult Daniel had thrown. Her throat closed. She should have pulled away. She should have reminded him she was just the girl who signed a contract out of desperation. But instead, she found herself frozen, her heart pounding at the dangerous closeness of his. A silence stretched, heavy, charged. His eyes flickered to her lips. The door burst open. Daniel stormed in, phone in hand, his voice cold with satisfaction. Adrian, it seems your miraculous donor has just made headlines. He tossed a tablet onto the bed. Elena's breath hitched when she saw it. Her own photo, grainy and cruel, splashed across news feeds. CEO's life saved by homeless girl, now secretly bound by contract. Her name, her face,
Exposed.
Elena's blood drained. The comments were already scrolling beneath. Mockery, pity, speculation. Every shame she had worked to bury was dragged into the light. Her knees went weak. No, they can't. Daniel's smirk was venomous. The board will eat this alive. A beggar girl in the veins of our empire? Imagine the scandal. Adrian's fury was volcanic.
Get out.
But Daniel only leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper meant to cut Elena deep. You don't belong here, sweetheart. You'll ruin him. You'll ruin everything. Something inside Elena shattered. She spun on Adrian, eyes blazing with hurt. He's right, isn't he? This, whatever this is, will destroy you. Elena. No, her voice broke. You gave me words I wanted to believe, but you don't understand what it means to be nothing. You'll survive this, Adrian. But me? They'll chew me up until there's nothing left. Tears threatened, but she refused to let them fall. She wrenched her hand free at last, stumbling back toward the door. Adrian's voice thundered after her, raw and desperate. Elena, don't walk away from me. But she did. Each step felt like tearing flesh from bone, but she kept moving, her heart screaming against her decision. Because she knew the truth now, saving him had cost her more than her blood. It had cost her the only thing she had left, her freedom. Cliffhanger ending. As she disappeared down the hallway, Adrian's chest constricted. The monitor beside him spiked, alarms blaring. Daniel's smile curved cruelly. Careful, cousin. If you chase her too hard, you might lose the very heart that wasn't yours to begin with. Adrian's hand clutched his chest, not just in pain, but in fear. Because for the first time in his life, he realized the empire he had built meant nothing if she wasn't in it.